Welcome to the first video filmed for you in 2022, brought to you by Flight Attendant Career Connection. I'm Abbie Unger, and I am excited about today's video because it is a recap video of a webinar that was hosted by Southwest Airlines. So if you haven't been invited officially yet to one of the weekly Southwest Airlines Career Connections free webinars, no relation, then I want you to go to their website, to Google, to LinkedIn, and find this and register, because every week from here on out, they haven't said that they're going to stop. And I feel like it's getting a lot of traction, so I think they're going to keep doing it. Southwest Airlines is hosting a Career Connections online event, free webinar. This is what the registration looks like. And I've attended a couple, but the information was so good and the recordings, the webinars are not recorded. I thought that it would be helpful to do a little recap. I wanted to do a recap. I wanted to share with you what they had shared in case you couldn't make it live because of who knows why. It doesn't even matter why you couldn't make it live. I wanted to give you a recap. This is going to be a recap for the first one that they did in 2022. And I'm planning to do the recaps hopefully from here on out, as long as they continue to give us amazing, valuable information. Now, these webinars are not just for flight attendant candidates. They are for anyone who is interested in joining the Southwest Airlines team. So they're not necessarily focused on the in-flight career, but they do give a lot of information about the interview process, resumes. This webinar was focused a lot on resumes. So they've got some great resume tips that I'm going to share with you in just a minute. Now, keep in mind, this is a Southwest Airlines webinar, but aviation across the board, it's pretty consistent. There are some things that are going to be very specific to Southwest, but the general interview advice so far is going to be helpful for you, no matter who your goal is to interview with and eventually work for. So let's go ahead and dive in. Another reason I want you to join the webinars, if you can, actually like the live webinars, is because they're very personable. They are very fun, of course. I mean, they're Southwest, but they do a really great job there. It's led by the people department, which is the human resources department at Southwest. And they're just very good communicators. They're engaging communicators. They're easy to listen to. They're very quick to give sort of like behind the scenes insider insights about how they are motivated and how like each individual recruiter sort of shares, like, this is what I like to see. This is what I'm looking for. And I think that that's a really cool thing, because we don't get feedback after our flight attendant interviews. You don't get feedback from the airline. So this is a good way, if you're listening to them, you can say, oh, maybe I didn't do that, or next time, maybe I should do that. So let's go ahead and get started, on the content. One thing that they started with was, there was a question that they took that had been emailed in. And the question was, what do I do about getting so much spam from Southwest and possibly missing an important email? And what they meant was, well, they sort of answered it two ways. One was, how do you know if an email is like a phishing, scammy spam? As well as if you are signed up for Rapid Rewards and you're signed up for alerts and you're signed up for career alerts and you've applied, you're going to be getting a lot of emails from Southwest. So how do you make sure that you're not missing that communication for the next step in the interview? So first of all, to make sure that it's not spam that is scammy spam that could be dangerous, is it will come from, the email address will come from a WNCO.com. So, I obviously don't work for them, so this is not my email, but it would be like Abbie Unger at WNCO.com, not like Southwest Airs or Southwestern Airlines or something.com, the email address that it comes from. So that's one way you can tell. Make sure you are never giving out your social security number over the email. They will never ask you for that kind of stuff, especially preliminary. They didn't say this, but I know of at least one person who has ended up in a troubling situation by sending photos of their passport before a real interview, photos of them holding their passport before a real interview, any kind of information like that. The first step in the interview process in aviation that is legit is going to be some sort of probably interview or an personality assessment. It's not going to be, send us all of your documents and your social security number at the beginning. Okay, so that's another thing. Also, they invited people to jump on LinkedIn and send a screenshot to one of the recruiters from the people department at Southwest if you do have a question before replying to that email or before sending your information. So that's very helpful. And that's going to be kind of across the board anytime you feel unsure about an email from an airline. If you have applied to a job with an airline though, and you applied through their website, more than likely the communication that you're getting after you've applied is going to be real. The people I know that have ended up being scammed, they actually applied through Facebook or through LinkedIn or through Indeed, and they weren't applying to a job, or they were getting information from a job they didn't actually apply to. So if you have applied to a job, some airlines do send text messages now. We don't have to assume all of that is scammy or spam, but you can. LinkedIn is a great resource. Also, in my Facebook group and Flight Attendant Career Connection, sometimes there's discussion about that kind of stuff too. If you need another resource. Now, what do you do in case you just get so many different alerts from an airline? One thing that I think is smart to do is you could, when you decide you're ready to start being a flight attendant or when you start applying, you can actually open a new email account. So you can open a new Gmail or whoever. I mean, Gmail's free, easy, straightforward. Use your name or use some sort of variation of your name. A lot of names are taken now. So some sort of variation of your name or some sort of something that looks and sounds professional, and then use that when you apply. So maybe that's not attached to your Rapid Rewards account. So maybe you're not getting sale emails. You're only getting communication from the airline. Of course, when you set up your profile, you're going to get those career alerts that may or may not be relevant, but that will cut down. At least you'll know when the communication is coming from the careers instead of the communication just coming from the marketing team. So that's one really good idea. This also is helpful because sometimes our email accounts addresses are outdated or kind of like unprofesh. So this is a really good idea to help streamline. And then you can always just be going to that email address, looking at that email account, and also checking that email account spam for sure. And it hopefully would just cut down a little bit on the amount of communication you're having to sift through. Another question that was asked, which I was so excited when this question was asked, because I get asked this question a lot too. So I was so excited to get to hear actual recruiters say words about this question. So the question is, what is the wow factor that recruiters are looking for? What is the wow factor recruiters are looking for? Isn't that a great question? And they answered it. So they said from a resume point of view, because remember this webinar was, it was themed resumes. From a resume point of view, they said that for resumes, the wow factor is that they're really not looking for sparkle. They said, don't worry about the sparkle. They want to make sure the wow factor for a resume is that it's easy to read, that it has the information that they need, and it's really easy to skim. In fact, one of the recruiters said that he loves a resume that is 90% utility and only 10% fashion. So, which I thought was a really good way to think about it, because so many times, and I have seen so many resumes like this that I have redone or reviewed, and so many people asking me questions after I send back their totally rewritten resume. They're like, it's so plain. Like, yes, the computer system is going to love it. It's not going to get scrambled. And your recruiter, when they're sitting there asking you, using it as a guide to interview you, it's going to be so easy for them to access the information. You don't need to have your photo on it unless specifically requested. And you don't need your initial, your monogram in a big color or your heading in a big color. It used to be that resumes, back in the day, it used to be I was trying to sound like an old person, but back in the day, it used to be that resumes were literally printed at the printer on nice paper. You would spring for the upgrade of the paper on the linen paper. You want it to be light blue or light pink so it could stand out, and it would be a little bit of color on there because you wanted it to stand out because it was literally in a stack of papers. So if everyone just had a Word document that had come out of their printer at home, then there was an opportunity for your resume to stand out. And the way you did that was zhuzhing it up, making it more fashionable. Now, that's not how resumes are reviewed. They're done online. They're either done by a computer system 95% of the time, or even if your recruiter is one by one hand manually reviewing them with their eyeballs or their ear. What is she? Oh, the girl from TikTok. What's her name? Elsa, LLC. She says her earballs, but that's different. Never mind. I regret. I digress. I regress. Okay. Back to business. They're reviewing it with their eyes on the computer still. So they're not going to get to feel like your cardstock linen, light green printed resume that's embossed on the front. Beautiful. So there is no standing out. It needs to get the job done. They're looking at it on a computer. Eye fatigue is real, y'all. Make it easy for them with your bullet points and stuff. And they actually break that down completely a little bit later. So I will also break it down for you a little bit later. But I loved that. I loved that question about the wow factor because it also led into the next question, which was about what do you do if you're an introvert? Okay. So what do you do if you're an introvert? They said, the question was, I didn't write down the question exactly, but it was something about are you kind of at a disadvantage if you're an introvert or if you're not out there and super demonstrative or super singing and dancing or doing whatever it is, especially Southwest wants you to do, or we think they want you to do? What do you do if you're a little bit more reserved, if that's not your personality? And you don't have to fake it. First of all, you don't have to fake not being who you are. One thing that they said, they started by saying smile. So even if you're introverted, even if you're not able to be super yay, we're doing an interview, still smile. Everything, so many interviews are on video now, which means you're not wearing your mask. Even if you are at an interview where you're wearing a mask, your smile goes up to your eye crinkles, unless you got a bunch of Botox. Maybe that doesn't. But, when you're smiling, you could tell when I was smiling, when I wasn't smiling, right? My cheekbones move. So make sure you're smiling during the interview. That's the international sign of friendliness and welcoming. So make sure that you're smiling. Also, this was really good advice. Talk about what you're passionate about. Talk about things that you're passionate about. So one of the things that this made me think of is when you're picking your star format situation question stories. So you're asked a star format question, or you're reviewing them, you're preparing, and you have maybe two stories, or you're not sure which one to go. If you are an introvert and you're worried about not appearing as excited or engaged as maybe one of your extroverted peers would, choosing a story about something that you're passionate about or is exciting to you will be the better choice. Even if they're both great stories, if one is about a job maybe you loved more, or a customer that you loved more, or a product that you loved more, pick that one, because that will allow you to be a little bit brighter and more excited because you're talking about something that you're excited about. They also said, don't be disingenuous. Do not try to fake. Don't fake it till you make it with you're an extrovert. Don't try to be extra if you're not extra. be yourself. They said being calm and friendly will shine just as much as high energy during an interview. So if you're an extrovert, I want you to remember this. You can write it down if you want. But being calm and friendly will shine just as much as a high energy candidate will during the interview. They're not looking for all singers and dancers, I promise. You being authentic and shining through and talking about things that you're excited about gives you just as much of a chance as your counterparts who are high energy. Another thing they said to do was practice, which I love because that's what my whole life is about interview practice and interview prep. So, I have the Flight Attendant Career Connection interview workbook that has over 50 questions in it that you can begin to practice, along with some training videos that are online that match that. We also have the Hub, and I do Study Hall, which is a group coaching opportunity twice a month. I'll put the links and stuff down in the description so that you can read about those if they sound interesting to you. But I love the fact that he said practice. Now, yesterday I was at a meeting at the elementary school for my fourth grader, and he's an introvert. And one of his teachers, his reading teacher, she said she was also an introvert, and she said that one thing that she was like something about, like, when I was studying for my master's degree, I did a something on introverted something. I don't know. It was a whole bunch of like fancy, big education words. But basically what she was sharing with me to help my little guy is that introverts, one thing that she read about that they have studied is that it's very important for introverts to rehearse what they're going to say before they go into a situation. So she said that before she makes a phone call to a parent or even goes into class, it's more than just thinking about, I'm going to go in here and teach history, or I'm going to go in here and teach phonics or whatever. It's for her, it's more about, this is what, good morning class. Today we're going to be learning about blah, blah. So I thought that learning that last night about my son and about introverts, and then also referencing what they said about practicing, I realized how valuable that really, really is for introverts. And you will not, if you're worried about coming across as rehearsed, or I don't want to go over it, if you are an introvert or you identify as being on the introvert spectrum, or that's where you lean, it's important that you rehearse what you're going to say. And that could be by yourself. You could record yourself. You could just think about it. You could write it out. You could coach with me. It's not about that, but this feels like a really big key for people who feel like they may be introverts, to be able to be their most authentic self, because that's our goal. We're not trying to rehearse lines of a script that someone else wrote for a character that we're not able to play. It's just about talking about what we want to say and then rehearsing what we want to say, not what we think we should say, if that makes sense. Okay. Another thing is, this kind of goes along with making sure that you're talking about what you're passionate about. He said that no matter how reserved a person is, when they talk about something that they're passionate about, they see their eyes light up. And when their eyes light up, it is something that's really, really cool as a recruiter for them to see, because then they know that they're really getting a true picture of the person who is talking to them. So when you're thinking about things that the story choices, again, think about things that make your eyes light up. When they say, tell me a little bit about yourself or your experience, focus and highlight those things that you are most passionate about and make your eyes light up. Okay. They also said that stammering and nerves are okay. It's just part of being real and genuine. So if you're kind of nervous, if you're like, let me think about that. You probably don't want to freak out quite that much, but stammering and needing to being nervous or appearing nervous is part of being genuine. And so I loved hearing that as well. Okay, so more about the wow factor. So that was for introverts. That was the wow factor for introverts. We did wow factor for resumes, wow factor for introverts. Then one of the other recruiters shared a little bit about what they think is the wow factor, or how a candidate can bring the wow factor that the recruiters are looking for. And they said that when a person or a candidate uses a personal story to show why they would be a good fit for this role, that is something that they really like to hear. here. And, we know this is true because they asked star format questions. So they asked star format questions. Tell me about a time when you went above and beyond for a customer. That opens the door for a story. The only way to really truly answer that when they say, tell me about a time, is to tell them about a time, which is a story. Now, sometimes we just sort of talk about customer service. And again, that's why practicing and getting the interview workbook and things like that can be so helpful, because your brain is amazing when you put that question in front of it. Even the fact that I just asked you it now, your brain's going to be working on your story for that answer, your story for that question, and your answer for that question, just kind of on its own, because our brains are really powerful in that way. But telling a personal story is important. So they said that another thing that he said that I thought was really cool is that, they remember part of what you say, but they remember 100% of how you feel. And I think that's kind of like a variation of what the Maya Angelou quote, which is pretty cool to think about it that way. But when you are telling a story and you're taking them a bit on a journey, it is easier for them to feel something than when you are just talking about facts of customer service theory or something like that. So I thought that made a lot of sense, and I liked that they shared that too. Another thing that they said, kind of speaking back to the wow factor, how do I show the wow factor, is they just reminded all of us that human resources and recruiters, their goal is to put the right candidate in the right spot. So they're not judging you as to whether or not they think you are a good person or good at your job or worthy or anything. They just want to make sure their goal, they have lots of different open opportunities. They have lots of different people coming in for lots of different jobs, and they want to make sure that the right person gets in the right job. And that's really their goal. It's not about judging you or trying to decide if they think that you are good enough or anything like that kind of puts some morality and emotion to it. It's just about, is this the best person for this spot? The next question that was asked was another really great one. And it's, what do I do? What do I do to help me get hired next time after I've been rejected a couple times or one time? So after rejection, what can I do so that I can just get hired, so that I can do it, so I can get hired? In fact, the person who had asked the question, she said that she has interviewed 3 times with Southwest and she has not been successful, and she's just frustrated and just really, really wants to work for Southwest, and she still has that drive, and she wanted to know what she could do. So is this a good question? Oh, okay. And they gave like a really specific answer. It wasn't like, oh, just try again, blah, blah. No, they told you. They said, he told us, he said, he asks candidates who, when he sees like that they've interviewed before and then they come back, they're interviewing again, he asks them, what have you done since the last time you interviewed to make yourself a better candidate this time around? What have you done to get ready for this opportunity to interview again? First of all, great question. Second of all, even if you're not flat out asked that question, this is the answer to how do I move forward and move closer to getting hired the next time. So he said, he wants to hear about either like volunteer work that someone took to either get out in front of customers more, or to serve their community better, or to learn a new skill, or maybe like a new responsibility that they took on at work. And he also said, maybe you got a new job. He said, if you want to be a flight attendant, maybe you got a job at a regional airline. Maybe you got a job as a regional flight attendant and you're now working as a regional flight attendant, and you're back again and you're saying, I was like, I knew it was true that they do hire regional flight attendants, because I've been saying it for years that being a regional flight attendant does not disqualify you from working for any other airline, mainline, legacy, whatever, major, based on this old wives' tale or this urban legend that, they want to train you, and anyone who's a regional flight attendant has bad habits. But he flat out said it. He was like, get a job at a regional airline, go be a flight attendant at a regional carrier, and then come back and say, I love working for, and then it was funny because he couldn't think of, I think he said like Mesa, and then he couldn't think of like any other regional carriers. He's like, or WestJet. And I was like, Well, I mean, you could go work for WestJet, but without dual citizenship, you're good. But it was kind of sweet the way he did it. He was trying to really be like, go work for a regional. But anyways, back to the point. So the point was, don't worry about taking a job at a regional or another airline that is not your ultimate goal airline as a stair step. Recruiting departments in aviation, at least at Southwest Airlines, see that as a step, a career building step that moves you closer to landing your dream job as a flight attendant with your dream airline. They 100% said it, which was really cool. He also just reminded us that some people don't get hired that would be amazing in the position just because it's so competitive. So they maybe have 10 people and 5 of them are like freaking awesome, but they only have 3 slots. 2 freaking awesome people get thanks, but no thanks. He just reminded us of that. That's not quite as common in the flight attendant position as we interview to be a flight attendant, because airlines are normally hiring hundreds. Some of the smaller ones will be hiring dozens at a time. Most everyone else will be hiring hundreds, if not thousands of flight attendants at a time. We're going to see thousands on thousands of flight attendants hired and trained this year. So that the thing about the competition isn't quite as relevant to the flight attendant position, as opposed to maybe like if you're going to work on the ramp and there's really just 2 spots, or you're going to go work in customer service and there's only 5 spots. Flight attendant career has a lot more opportunity. And the reason I mention that is because I don't want you to be super focused on your competition. I don't want you to be super focused on other people who are applying for the same job, because in the flight attendant position, there really is room for all of us, you and the people on either side of you in that interview room or Zoom room. There's room for all of you if you are all excellent. They're not going to say, well, today we interviewed 10 flight attendant applicants and 5 were freaking amazing, but we're only allowed to hire 3 a day. It's not like that in the flight attendant position, because they need so many people. So don't worry about your competition as much, but it is good to remember that just because you didn't get the job, it doesn't mean that you're not amazing. Maybe there was just like a little thing that you didn't quite make it there. Okay. Another thing that he reminded people this was kind of advice for people who were feeling frustrated after being rejected over and over again, is to make sure that you are checking your tone and your face. So it's like, fix your face. How's your face? So like and this doesn't mean like, are you pretty or like, do you have all makeup? What he means is everything is like virtual now. So are you smiling the whole time? How are you looking? How are you coming across? Are you kind of trying to raise your energy a little bit because video sucks some of that energy out of the communication? Is your background looking nice? Do you look prepared? Do you look like you put on, fresh to death, clothes? I don't know why I'm cracking myself up over that. So that you look nice, you look ready. And then your tone. How does your tone sound? What is your tone of voice? It's not what you say, it's how you say it, right? Whose mama told them that? Okay, so that just was a little reminder. And then again, he talked about telling stories. That telling stories, which is those star format question answers, are very important. See all the notes I took for y'all? All right, then they started talking about resumes. At Southwest, they review each resume personally. So each resume is reviewed manually by a human being. They do not send it through the software. That's why it takes Southwest a little bit longer sometimes to get through all of the candidates and all of the applications, because they are looking at each one. They are looking for bullet points. They want bullet points. Bullet points. They love bullet points. That's what they want. It makes it easy for them to quickly skim through. And then they also are looking for sort of like accuracy and correctness. Like they just sort of, they read through it. They look to see if it's a good fit. And then they also make sure that it's not like, it doesn't appear like maybe you fudged anything or maybe exaggerated anything. They want to make sure that the resume feels authentic. And so that doesn't mean that it wasn't, like you didn't have someone help you with it professionally. They don't want to be like, oh, she didn't write this. That's not what they mean. They're like, it's more like, did she really do that? Was that really part of her responsibility at Red Lobster? That kind of thing is what they're looking for. Gaps in employment. They talked about gaps in employment. They ask, all the airlines do this. They ask for gaps in what you have. They ask about your gaps in employment. Have you had any? What were you doing during that time? And they ask this for utility, not elimination. So they ask this because when they do the background check, when you're run through the background check, they need to be able to answer those questions as to like, what where were you during this time, just so that they can make sure that you are who you say you are, that you didn't like come up with a brand new identity, like that one flight attendant from Brazil with the brand new identity that was in the news last week. Yeah, something like that, to prevent that from happening. So that's why they're asking. It's not about you have to have worked consistently for the last 10 years or you're not a qualified candidate. It has nothing to do with that. Another kind of point that they made, this was a great tip, is if you are working in a contract job or a temporary job, if it just, that's how it was set up, go ahead and put contract position in the job description. So you could say receptionist contract position in the little thing, like Hallmark stores, receptionist contract position, like that, so that they just sort of gives them some extra context. So you're answering questions that they will probably ask before they ask it. You're anticipating the questions and the information that they need, and you're giving them the information that that they're going to need. They also said that this myth, they would love to debunk this myth, that it has to be one page, that your resume has to be one page. That is not true. Again, that again goes back to the whole like make it stand out. Back when they used to print the resumes out and stack them on a person's desk, and it absolutely was in your best interest to try to get it to one page, because multiple pages from multiple people, that's a big old stack. But now everything is done online. So I mean, in some ways, you can't even tell that much if it's 1 or 2 pages. You're just scrolling. They said once you go past 2 pages, though, you're probably making it a little bit harder on your recruiter to kind of slog through that information. So tighten it up. 2 pages is great. You can combine similar jobs together into one listing, basically, or one section. So the way I do this when I do resumes is, let's say you've been a server at the Waffle House, IHOP, and Perkins. So you've been a server there. You would put your most recent at the top, IHOP, from this date to that date. And then right underneath it, you would put Waffle House from this date to this date. And then underneath you would do Perkins, this date to this date. And that would be your heading for that little section before you do your job description. And then right underneath those 3 names on the next line, it would say server. And then you would start your bullet points underneath that, because those are the same, instead of doing a full bullet point for all 3. That saves time. And that's what they mean when they said that you can combine your similar jobs together. Server jobs at breakfast restaurants are similar. And then another thing that you can do to try to help with your size and meet your sizing goals, to meet your size goal, here is a tip. You can use the font, your font type, the font size, and also your margins to help you capture some of that blank space and fill it with words so that it doesn't go past your 2 pages. You want to make each section clear as to what it includes. So you have your heading at the top, and then you have like an objective, an introduction, and they say an introductory paragraph or a summary, or I call it like an objective, is great right there. 3 to 5 sentences, a little paragraph is at the top underneath your heading is great. And then you want like employment, and then you want like education. So each section should be clear as to what they are. Bullet points are key. They said it over and over again. Bullet points are key. Do not use a paragraph in your job description. So underneath Huddle House, Don't say, when I worked at the Huddle House, I was responsible to make sure that every customer was greeted and welcomed as they walked in to the Waffle House. No, we're doing bullet points. Provide excellent customer service to every customer of a quick, casual, 24-hour restaurant, whatever. That's what we're talking about. Bullet points. Boom, 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 boom. Make each one a snapshot and make it easy to skim. Do not use I statements or narratives in your job description, which is what I just did and then fixed, okay? You want to make sure that it's easy to connect with you and that your contact information's in your header. That's email and phone number at least. If you feel comfortable, it's pretty standard to put your address, but you could just put your city and state if you wanted to, or you could leave it off and just do your email and your phone number. I mean, they're not sending out stewardess job offers through the mail anymore, although they did for a long time. So you don't really have to have your mailing address on there, but it is still kind of standard. You want to start with your most recent experience. So your most recent job, heading, objective, job, work experience, most recent job first with the name of the company. They want the dates. They want the month and the year. They didn't say they needed the day of the month that you worked there, but they did say they needed the month and the year. And they said that several times. Don't just put like 2018 to 2019, I worked at the Gap. They want the month and the year. So find that information if you don't have it so that you can complete your resume correctly and your application correctly. They want you to start with the most recent experience and then go back. You're going to go back about 10 years. If there's other stuff that's super relevant, you can add that in. That's okay. Or you can create like another little section that says previous experience and kind of leave the job description parts out and just kind of list those if you wanted to. But you want to start with the most recent and then go back. Be consistent in your formatting. That's another thing that I do see sometimes when I'm doing resumes too, is someone like changed the font or they were editing the document. So, and the font is slightly different or the size or even the spacing. So make sure that you, when you're done, that you copy, you can do Control A and copy the entire document. And then make sure that the font is the same throughout the whole thing and the size. Next, they talked about skills section. They were kind of laughing because they were like, skills section, not super necessary. We love to actually see your skills more defined in your job description. But if you want to do some sort of like skills section, achievement section, something like that, that's fine. But skills are not personality traits. So like outgoing and energetic is not a skill, okay? Microsoft Word, Microsoft Suites certified, that's a skill. Okay, so that was kind of one of the things that they talked about, is making sure that your skills section is not like skills are not personality traits. Skills are things that you've got certifications in or things that you've learned how to do. Those are that's CPR is a skill. Life-saving first aid is a skill. Compassionate patient care is not a skill. Okay. So don't list vague corporate descriptions. Make sure it's relevant to the job. They also said with your resume, don't center it, left justify it. They don't want to see like everything just like center down the middle. You can center your heading and then left justify everything else. Okay. If a degree is not required for the position, which flight attendant it's not, don't put education at the top. Put education at a section near the bottom. Instead of skills, they love more of an achievements section. And achievements can be ones that are professional or social. So for example, a work achievement could be like an award that you've won or something that you achieved at work. But then you can also add in there if you're an Eagle Scout, I said that one a couple times, if you have a black belt, like running a marathon, things like that are measurable. But personal achievements are good, and that allows them to kind of connect a little bit more. Now, I do think that this sort of lends itself a bit more to Southwest than some of the other airlines. Although the two examples that he gave, which was Eagle Scout and black belt, I think that would be a relevant achievement for any airline, because it does show a lot of it. They both bring skills and dedication and determination that would benefit you as a flight attendant. But some of the other achievements, maybe like winning Garden of the Month or something, Southwest put that on the resume, but maybe American doesn't care if your garden was Garden of the Month. It's just something to kind of think about when you're thinking about the different vibes of the airlines, especially if you're worried about room on your resume. Be ready to talk about everything that's on your resume. So if you do put on there that you got Garden of the Month, be ready to talk about your roses and begonias or whatever, because they will ask you about the things on your resume. Oh, how long did it take you to earn your black belt? What's your favorite patch on your Eagle Scout vest? I don't know. They would maybe ask you a question about it, but he just kind of specifically said that. And I felt like he said that because maybe he's tried to bring up more achievements in the past as a way to connect with people, and they get sort of confused because it's not a professional question. So just be ready to talk about anything that you put on your resume. Another tip that they gave about the bullet points that I found helpful was you could start each bullet point in your job description. If you try to start it with a verb, that can help it, first of all, be a little more powerful. And it just shows what you are doing, right? Because a verb is an action word, so it's showing what you're doing. So provide, manage, lead, open, like open the store, create, record, support, those kinds of things are verbs. Jump, run, hug, those are verbs too. And they also said that you can use the verbs if you're getting stuck. You can look at the verbs that are in the job description and use some of those verbs, as well as use that and say like, oh, they say like provide. That's a great verb. What did I, that kind of thing. So I thought that was a good tip. All right. That is the end of my recap for what was that? The Southwest Airlines Career Connections free webinar every Tuesday at 12 o'clock Herb time, which is Central Time. You can go onto Southwest Airlines to register. I'll put the link. I should have said this at the beginning. I'll put the link to register down in my description so that it's easy for you to find. And once you register, they send you an email every week, which is really great. And you can join the webinar. They also have a way you can email them questions that they'll ask the recruiter. And it's just a really fun time to kind of like talk shop and learn about Southwest specifically, but also the aviation industry in general. And I'm really grateful that they're doing it because I really love listening to the recruiters talk about their point of view. And I'm so grateful that they're as swamped as they are, even especially at Southwest right now, with needing new, I was going to say crew members, cohorts, that they'll take the time to do something like this to help people who are struggling or feeling nervous feel more confident. So thank you. Let's see who I want to thank. Let's see if we thank them by name. So thank you, Joy, Adam, and Noel for that webinar. And we appreciate all of the time that y'all put in there and all of the time that you give us. And thank you for watching this video. I would love for you to like and subscribe to my channel as well. And I'll see you later.